Welcome to One Move at a Time, the U.S. Chess podcast that explores people and organizations who are advancing our educational mission to empower people, enrich lives, and enhance communities through chess. Our goal is to give you ideas and methods you can use in your own community to help you build chess in your area, one move at a time. Make sure to listen to our family of U.S. Chess podcasts, which include Cover Stories with Chess Life on the first Tuesday of each month, in which Chess Life editor John Hartman goes more in-depth with each month's cover story, Ladies' Night, which drops on the third Tuesday of each month, and that is hosted by our women's program director Jennifer Shahadi, and on the fourth Tuesday of each month, Chess Underground, hosted by our assistant director of national events, Pete Karianis, in which he examines the game's eccentricities, peculiarities, and theoretical novelties. All can be found at the podcast link on Chess Life Online at uschess.org, or by subscribing via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Now, let's welcome our guest to this month's podcast. Welcome to the May edition of One Move at a Time. Our guest today is Grandmaster John Fedorowicz. I'm going to introduce him by reading from his 2009 U.S. Chess Hall of Fame induction plaque. Inspired to begin playing chess by the Fischer-Spassky World Championship match in 1972, the Fed won the National High School Championship in 1975, tied for the U.S. Junior Championship in 1977, and won the competition outright in 1978. Both before and after attaining the GM title in 1986, Fedorowicz was considered a force in American chess, taking the U.S. Open in 1980, the New York Open in 1989, the National Open in 1992, and qualifying for the U.S. Championship numerous times. He is also the winner of 5 World Open titles and has many international victories to his credit, including Cannes and Sesimbra in 1987 and Vaikanzi in 1990. Fedorowicz twice represented the U.S. in the World Chess Olympiad and captained both men's and women's Olympiad teams. He also has authored numerous chess articles and 2 books, The Complete Benko Gambit in 1990 and The English Attack, with Nick DeFermian in 2004. A lifelong New Yorker, Fedorowicz spends much of his time teaching and participating in the city's chess community and has frequently served as a second and advisor to U.S. champion Gada Kamsky. Hoff, welcome to the One Move at a Time podcast.
Hi, Dan. Great to be here, and thanks for having me. And I should correct one thing, just to be fair. In 78, U.S. Junior, I didn't win it clear. I tied with Yasser Seirawan and Paul Whitehead.
Okay, no slight meant to our friends Yasser and Paul.
yeah. I just wanted to make sure I didn't want I didn't want you to get any letters, you know?
Oh, okay. So let's start with, why did I call you Hoff? Tell our listeners who may not be familiar with that moniker.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah, I was watching I'm a big baseball fan, and there was Goose Gossage, a relief pitcher for the Yankees, made the Hall of Fame. And then he started signing his autographs, HOF, Goose Gossage. So I started calling myself HOF GM Johnny just to be funny. So, that's where I got it from, Hall of Fame. Although I had one ex-girlfriend that thought it had something to do with beer.
And while you say you started it just kind of be funny, and it certainly fits with your sense of humor, but there must be a sense of pride of being in the Hall of Fame. Do you consider this one of your top achievements?
Absolutely, Dan. I was, it's kind of a big deal to get in the Hall of Fame, in any game or sport, and to get in there, especially with my friends GMs Joel Benjamin, Larry Christensen, and Nick DeFermian. So the 4 of us, we played on Olympic teams together. We played in a lot of U.S. championships together. We've helped each other in tournaments. So getting into the Hall of Fame with with people like Fischer and world champions and U.S. champions from a long time ago, a great honor.
And I think today's going to be very much a trip down memory lane. And to start on that, you're almost the poster boy for the Fischer boom. Talk about why you started playing chess.
I hate to pull the old geezer routine on people down, but the first thing I tell these little kids is that back then there were only 5 or 6 TV stations, and And I was just flipping channels when I ran into the Shelby Lyman and the Fischer Spassky match on the educational channel. And I don't know, I thought it was sort of interesting, and I started following it all the time. And I thought the names of the openings were kind of funny. I think there was like Nimzo Indian, or, Kings Indian and Sicilian Defense and this kind of stuff. And then I followed the whole match. I didn't read much about it in the paper. I didn't really know about it. I think I should have, but I was a kid. I think I just read the sports section. And, with all the political USSR against USA and Fischer taking on the Soviets all by himself, was a big deal. And that's how my first introduction to chess. I never played chess before that.
Was there any chess in your family at all? Did either of your parents play?
Absolutely not. No, I was good at sport. Well, when I was going to Ohio, I was in the Bronx. I was very stubborn, and I was like in the Glee Club. But as you could tell with this voice, my singing career wasn't really going to get, going too well. And the music teacher said to me, "John, you got the worst voice ever. Why don't you try sports?" And so I tried sports, and I was a good baseball player and good basketball player, and actually a very good bowler. I used to do after school bowling every Friday across from Yankee Stadium, and but after a while, chess started to take over. My parents let me. My grandfather lived in the Bronx after we moved to Piscataway, New Jersey, and it was. I would play in tournaments downtown, the Goichberg tournaments. Goichberg had a tournament like every week or every week and a half, every 2 weeks or so at the McAlpin Hotel on 34th Street. And it was just like a 20-minute subway ride from my grandfather's. And so I played a lot. I tried to go to a Goichberg tournament maybe twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month. And that's when the Russians started coming over. I would always make it a practice to see if I was, had a chance to win the tournament, even though I was rated only about 2,100. And, I'd say, is anybody coming in, who's playing in the tournament? The first time was Goichberg told me Shamkovich was playing. And I was familiar with Leonid Shamkovich from the Chess Informant of all the games that I played over. And I thought Goichberg was joking, but Shamkovich was one of the first immigrants to come over, and he played every week. And I estimate that I played him maybe like 150 times. And also, I learned a lot from playing him. He worked me over in some endings. I learned a lot from playing people like Shamkovich and Lev Albert and Jinji and Anatoly Lane. You learn. You lose to them, but you learn a lot while you're doing it.
So did you have any coaching at this time, or was it all self-taught and just going over your own games?
All self-taught. My mother would buy me a chess book every now and then. I think one of my first chess books, I'm not really sure why, but it worked out well, was Rook Endings by Smyslov and Levenfish. It's a great book. And I don't know why, I just thought it was good to study endings early on. And also another thing that helped me was I liked playing over like long technical games, like 65 move games. As a result of that, I was kind of like drawn to Anatoly Karpov, who I have to say was my favorite player, and still is. And for a long time, people would ask me who my favorite player was. I couldn't say Anatoly Karpov,
Right.
Back then, I probably would have been called a Kalami or something. Who knows, So, but I really liked his style, and I thought Karpov and Fischer's style were very similar anyway. And I learned, and that's how I studied. And also, the big deal back then was when you went to a tournament and you heard the Chess Informant showed up. Like sometimes there was almost riots with people. Like people were so starved for chess, chess information, chess games, stuff like that. And then somebody told me that there was a Russian bookstore downtown, and I could go in there and buy like Russian chess magazines and stuff. So I used to do that, and I just did a lot of studying, and I liked it. I mean, my father would come in and see me reading these chess books, and he'd go, "How do you read that stuff?" And I'd go, "Well, you kind of get used to it. It's just chess notation." And so it was. I don't know, for some reason the studying part of it really appealed to me, and I think that helped me a lot. And I don't know if you saw GM Joel Benjamin and Harold Scott's book on the World Open.
Yes,
it's a great book, and there's the chapter in there, and they interviewed me, and I told them I used to go to tournaments with a notebook and ask the grandmasters questions. And one of my favorite grandmasters to ask questions to was Tigran Petrosian, who always sort of like winked at me and gave me some kind of answer, and I couldn't tell if he was serious or not. And so I would write stuff in my notebook, and I learned a lot from the grandmasters. And me and my friends like John Tisdale and Michael Rode, we were kind of afraid of these Soviet grandmasters because we read about them, and they look kind of mean, but it turned out they were all really nice. And when I asked them questions, they were very happy to answer my questions and always wish me well. And I especially, I don't know, Petrosian liked me a lot for some reason. Well, I almost beat him in Hastings, so that might have had something to do with it. But Petrosian always liked me a lot and was always telling me stuff.
Now, you had an incredible amount of success right away. If you've only started in 1972, I'm looking at just these first few years. I'm going to read this short list. 1973, first place in the New York Championship Class A section, first place in the New Jersey Junior Championship. In 74, first place in the U.S. Junior Congress, first place in the U.S. Amateur Championship, and the New Jersey State Championship Class A section. And in 75, you win the high school championship as well as the Manhattan Open Championship.
Mm-hmm.
To have this kind of success so quick after starting, was this just a natural talent or incredible work ethic, some combination thereof?
I don't know, Dan. Is there? I don't know. I could never tell if there's such a thing as natural talent. I just think I put in the work. Back then you had to put in the work. Nowadays, I tell the kids at my school and any of my students, I go, look, if it's easy to study now with chess based and all of the chess tools that you could get online, or you could just go online and watch a tournament and learn a lot. But back then it was just me studying by myself pretty much, and going over my games, and and I had close friends like John Tisdale. We used to help each other a lot, and I think we taught each other a lot. And I think that was the main contributor. I don't know about natural talent. I guess I have some kind of chess thing, but I think it was really I would say it's the work that did it.
Well, I always, as far as natural talent, I always remember reading that Botvinnik said that, let me see how a beginner handles a knight, and I can predict their future success. Do you see any truth in something like that?
I don't know. I don't think I handled the knight too well, to tell you the truth. So, they used to say that the Americans like the bishops, and the USSR and the Soviets like the knights.
Oh.
I mean, I kind of like wide open positions, and when I started playing against the Russians, I knew that if I got into a maneuvering game against them, I'd have trouble. So I was always like launching some kind of crazy attack, because there was a real fear of getting ground down. As a matter of fact, when I got lucky to play in Hastings in 1977. /78, since Hastings goes over 2 years. The worst game I ever played was against Roman Gingiashvili. People should look that up. After that game, I just felt like, my God, I really don't know how to play chess. He beat me in 25 moves. Total positional crush. Unbelievable. And I still think about it sometimes, because it helped me understand about weak squares and bad bishops, and just patience and positional chess. And I think from a tournament like Hastings, and also my first U.S. championship, when I tied for first in 1977 in the U.S. Junior, I qualified for the U.S. championship in Mentor, Ohio. And I wasn't ready to play it, and I knew that I was probably the weakest player, but I knew that I was going to go in and try and learn a lot and see what happens. And, and I think that people have to understand that losing is a part of the game, and that's how you improve. You play these stronger players and you play them enough, you learn from them. And I learned a lot from playing in the U.S. Championship, and then a few months after that, Hastings. And, and that's the first time I ever saw Gingy. And I was like, I don't know who this guy is. It's like, and then Gingy won the tournament ahead of people like Petrosian and Hort. So, and I became a big fan of his, and we became good friends. And he was a good guy too. His games were good to study too, to learn how to play positionally.
One thing you said that surprised me about this, that from playing Gingy, you learn more about things like the strength and weaknesses of, say, the dark squares, but you must mean this whole different level of understanding at a GM level, as opposed to ways someone like a Class C player might understand strong and weak squares.
I don't know. I think if a lower, a person with a low rated in 1,500 or 1,600, just picked a few games and studied them and learned about squares. And ever since that game, I lost because of the C5 square, and I gave myself a backward pawn. So if you think about this sort of like backward pawn, that's how I teach the kids at my school. I tell them, like, look, you got to hear my lovely voice here. Like, what is this pawn called? And they go, backward pawn. And then what do you do with the backward pawn? And they say, well, you're supposed to focus your rooks on the half-open pawn. Little things like that to and the chess sayings, knight on the rim is grim. All this stuff is meant to help us, and it does a pretty good job of it. And I think it could be the same thing with studying weak squares.
So you mentioned your school. Where do you teach?
I teach at Spar Legacy School on 9th Avenue and 59th Street in Manhattan, and I've been there about 10 years now. Sunil Weramantry brought me in there originally, and now my boss is Sean O'Hanlon, and it's I've been there. It's a very nice place to work, and our kids have done very well in tournaments. I don't know because of me. I just give them a little push and help them out, and they go and win all these trophies that we have there. So, Spar Legacy School in New York City is where I'm at. And it's a nice commute. I live on West 73rd Street in Manhattan, and the school's on 59th. So it's a nice, very small commute.
And do you work with all the chess students from beginner to advanced, or are you focused just on the advanced students?
In the curriculum with the classes, Sean O'Hanlon had me working. I thought it was kind of a weird thing to have me working with the little ones instead of like the older ones, but the little ones seem to like me, and they seem to improve pretty fast. We have a couple of 5-year-olds that are like 1,200, and my wife Angela finds it highly amusing when the parents are always taking pictures of me with these cute little kids and sending them to her, and she's like, "Hey, look, Grandmaster John, look at him now," But it's worked out great there, and people, I'm almost 64 years old. People go, why don't you retire? I say, I don't know, I'm having a good time. If you like doing something, why should you retire?
So when I read the introduction, your plaque says you were a force in American chess, and I certainly remember, as I grew up with Chess Life, like your name was in there all the time. And in preparation for this, I grabbed just a couple of random issues, and sure enough, there you are. So I'm going to ask you about these specific events because they're so random, and maybe we'll get lucky and they'll generate some good stories.
Uh-huh.
The first one I grabbed was the December 1976 issue, and in there was an article by Bill Goichberg about the FIDE-rated Masters Futurity tournaments.
Yes.
And in this particular one, you finished second in your group to Mark Deason.
Yes, Mark. First of all, Mark Deason, it was a shame. He retired at a very early age. And he quit chess. He quit chess at an early age too. He was different than me and some of the other players. I liked going to Europe, and when Mark went to Europe, he felt homesick, and it affected the way he played. Mark with Deason was the strongest of all the kids around my generation, He was, and he had a coach. He lived in Maryland, and his coach was Lubaj Kovalik, and so he had a little bit of an edge on us there. But he was really a strong young player. He was like maybe 50, 70 points higher rating wise than I think I was back then. And so yeah, and Goichberg had these he called them futurities, right?
Yes,
is that what it said in the article? He would call it futurities.
It was called FIDE rated Masters Futurity. And
I picked the right time to get a really good score, and because of that, I wound up. That's how I got into Hastings, Dan. My FIDE rating was 2480. I was not that good. It was based on one tournament to have a FIDE rating of 2480. I thought maybe I was about a 2350 player, which isn't bad, but not 2480. But at least, at least when somebody didn't show up in Hastings at the time, back then it was always visa problems, somebody that couldn't make it from somewhere, and they would always look for the highest rated pigeon, and that was easily me. So all of a sudden I was in the top group of Hastings. My hotel was paid for. They gave me a lot of spending money, and I was happy.
Well, again, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this incredibly rapid improvement in only 4 years to be in the 2300s already.
Yeah, it was maybe the most. To me, my first crucial moment in the chess career was around February of 1976. So if my rating was over 2250 USCF, my parents were going to let me go to the National Open and to Lone Pine afterwards. So that was a big deal. And you remember back then, Dan, the ratings supplement used to come out once a month. Mm-hmm. It was like a little book with the ratings in it. And Glenn Peterson, who helped me a lot in chess, and he died recently, and was a good guy and helped me a lot. I went over there and I said, hey, what's my rating? And he fooled around a little bit and like shook his head, and then he showed me, and it was 2256. So off to Las Vegas and then Lone Pine for my first time, 1976, Lone Pine, and I did well in the National Open. And Lone Pine, also, I don't know, but for people who aren't familiar, that was a tournament in a small town in California. The town was sort of in between San Francisco and Los Angeles and Las Vegas, kind of like in a triangle in the middle. And it was an interesting place to go, being from New York City, a small town. And the tournament was always like my mother told me when I was playing, and I told this to the little kids, and they don't want to hear it either. It was good experience, playing these guys and getting roughed up was good experience.
Mm-hmm. Now, the other chess life I grabbed was a little bit less random. I grabbed the May 1992 issue because we're talking 30 years ago. And in that one, there's an article about the 1 hour team tournament in Cannes in the French Riviera. And
that was a great.
Yeah.
There was maybe a little bit too much champagne involved, though, Dan.
Well, you were in the French Riviera, so it must have been just a great environment to play chess. Although I wonder if it's hard to focus when you have such exciting things outside the tournament hall.
Well, one thing about I love playing in Europe, and I still do. I just it was Cannes was really all that it was, cracked up to be. Just an unbelievable place on the Mediterranean. It's not always warm there, but we were there in February and it was probably like 65 or something like that. I guess people went swimming if they wanted to, but I just like to walk around the beach, and it's a cute little town, famous for the film festival, which is a very highfalutin deal. And, but yeah, we had a good time there, and it was more of like, it was semi-serious. It was not, and it was a fun thing to play in. I think it was the United States, England, USSR, and I think maybe Nordic countries combined or something, if I'm not mistaken. And I think we came in second. But that tournament was a nice team tournament, and it was always good to get invited to those sort of things. The organizer was Bessel Koch. He always took good care of us.
You'll be happy to know that the game of yours that's annotated by Edmar Mednes in the Chess Life article is a victory over Grandmaster Julian Hodgson in a Trompowski.
Oh yeah, that was a good game.
Well,
that was I think it was in a Trompowski.
Yep, it was.
And people also, and another thing that helped me in chess down was I had a good memory. And I don't know, I guess that's maybe just luck or something. I don't know, memory seems like something you might be born with. And I just remember, I remember a lot of stuff. And when I'm playing in tournaments, I would always walk around and look to see the other games to see if I could learn something. Maybe if I play one of them, I might see an opening that I want to face, something like that. And so, yeah, so that kind of tournament was great, and also we became friends. I was friends with all those guys on the English team. Very good friends with Julian Hodgson, a very very nice guy, and we're around the same age, and we always hung out together.
Now, do you feel like your memory is just as sharp as it always was? You're 7 years older than me, and I find that I've got, especially with shorter term memory, I have difficulties that I didn't used to have.
I don't know, Dan. I mean, the chess stuff stays in there. Sometimes I can't remember some running back's name in the NFL, but the chess stuff seems okay, though. but yeah, I think my memory, from most of the things at almost 64 years old, still seems okay.
Mm-hmm. Now,
did you know about the baseball manager Mike Matheny?
No.
I think Fun Master Mike Klein, who I'm good friends with, was telling me that when Mike Matheny was, he's the manager of the Kansas City Royals now, and when he was a player, he was a catcher, and he suffered like around 12 concussions. And back then, getting hit in the head, was not a big deal. They told you to put some dirt on it and you'd play, right? But nowadays, concussions, people are, very concerned, and they see how serious it is. So Mike Matheny, is, of course, naturally concerned about, the concussions as he gets older. And what he does is, I heard he plays a lot of chess on chess.com, and he says it, he thinks it helps him.
Yeah, there's certainly plenty of anecdotal evidence about that at this point.
Yeah, to keep, to keep your mind active and thinking about stuff and keeping it moving. So that's what he does to keep his brain going and hopefully to help him with this, concussion kind of thing that he has.
Now, you mentioned earlier how your father asked how you can read that stuff, referring to you're sitting down there with an informant in front of you. What?
Yeah. The informant was always something that he would shake his head at. And the other thing was those. Do you remember the Encyclopedia Chess openings, also from the Chess Informant Company?
Right.
Those ones really had him confounded because there was like little print, no words, a bunch of, you would get used to the symbols, slight advantage, this and the other, you know what I mean? Right. and then after a while, I remember we'd go to tournaments and me and Joel Benjamin and Michael Wallner would talk in informant code. You'd make a move, and if the only move we'd say box. And then people were like, what does that mean? It means like only move an informant symbol.
Right.
And so there was a lot of studying of those books, studying of the openings. It seems now that I studied my openings have gotten really good lately. I don't know. I think it's from teaching the little kids, but I think it's also from just watching chess on the internet a lot. When these big tournaments that they have in St. Louis, I'm a big fan of Nakamura and Fabiano, of course. And, and I just, and I follow all the tournaments with the new guys like this Ferrugia, and Magnus Carlsen's style really bewilders me, but the guy's just good. And he's like, I don't know how I couldn't play like that. I have trouble playing these like really boring positions, but he's just so good at it. But, it's a real kind of style that he has. And then people, I don't know, people asking me like who the best world champion is. That question always bothered me, Dan, because I don't think there's any way to answer that fairly,
Well, you had the kind of successes where you may have entertained world championship aspirations. Did you?
I don't know. I feel like maybe I started. I feel like starting chess at 15 might have been too late in that regard. Maybe a kid really has to start chess at 7 or 8 if he wants a chance to be world champion.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and also I think that probably at some point, maybe I don't know, maybe I had to move to Europe and just stay there for a few years. And I might, I don't know about world champion, but I think I could have gotten, maybe had a chance to get into like the top 20 or some kind of ranking like that. Maybe the top 15, who knows? But I think we're kind of like at a geographical situation here, kind of a problem, because most of the chess is in Europe. That's why I think Nakamura is always, he seems to, those guys spend a lot of time in Europe playing those tournaments, and they have houses there, and that's where I think the main focus of chess is. We still have a lot of tournaments here, and also Dan, I haven't been to the St. Louis Chess Club yet.
Oh, that's shocking to hear.
I haven't been there. I heard it's a great place, and I hope to go there at some point, maybe playing a tournament. I don't know. I for some reason they never invited me to something, so maybe they don't know if I exist, but that's okay.
And your Hall of Fame induction in 2009 was just before they all moved everything to St. Louis.
Right, yeah. I remember it was Al Lawrence had it in Florida or something, and then it moved, and then Mr. Singfeld was nice enough to help us out with a lot of stuff, financially with the chess club. I hear there's some kind of diner near the chess club.
Oh yeah, no, you have to visit the entire facility. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Taking out the technology changes, what do you see as the main differences between chess culture in the U.S. now and 50 years ago?
I think we're in pretty good shape. I think when the scholastic chess is going to make us a strong chess country for a long time. I down the tournament we were just at. Well, there were like 500 kids there or something like that, and you could tell how much.
Oh, more than that. So it was the National Middle School Championship.
You go walk around the hotel and you see kids all over the place playing, regular blitz, or of course Bug House. The kids love Bug House, but still the kids love chess, and I think that is really going to keep strong players in the United States for a long time now. Like we have in my school, we have a young player, Brewington Hardaway, who's around like 11 years old, 12 years old, and he's about a 2350 player. And and he could really I could see him being an IM or a GM in maybe 3 or 4 years or something like that. If and he'll get the opportunities because he'll get to play. He'll get invited to some GM tournaments or IM tournaments in St. Louis, so he'll get the opportunities. But I think as chess goes in this country, I think we're in really good shape. I think it's very popular, and the scholastic thing is unbelievable. Dan, I'm probably going to see you in Columbus in about like 8 days or something.
Yeah, that's right. We'll both be at the National Elementary, and the tournament you mentioned earlier was the National Middle School, and it wasn't 500 kids. We had 931 kids playing there.
There were 900. I didn't realize it was that much. Wow, that's a lot. And I think there's going to be even more in Columbus with the little ones playing. The little, it's amazing. And some of the kids from our school, the 5-year-olds, one little girl, Abigail. She's always the first one that has her picture taken to go on like the USCF website because she's so cute. And it's and you got the picture of her like just concentrating, and it's just great to see the kids playing. And it's a lot of fun to go to those events and help the kids and also see their progress.
As a location for a chess tournament, which do you prefer, Columbus or Cannes?
I went to Columbus. I was working with chess in the schools years ago. I don't remember how many years ago it was, and we went to Columbus, and I liked Columbus.
Yeah, no, it's a solid city. Yeah,
I mean, it's a nice college town, and you know how it is, Dan. It was kind of like the tournament you just spoke about in Dallas. Once the tournament starts, you don't have any time to do anything anyway, So, and as long as the hotel is a nice place and our team room is cool, then we're in good shape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So shifting focus a bit, you were a second to Gadakomsky.
Yeah.
How did that all come about?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it might be a ridiculous one to say, but I think I might have been the only one that got along with them.
Well, I was going to say you have very different personalities.
You know, I mean, I don't know. It was like Gingy said. There was one match where Gata had two coaches, and that was when Gata was playing Nigel Short and Lenoris in 1994, and in that match, Rustam and Gata brought both me and Roman Gingy, Hashvili, to help him. And we did a good job, and he beat Short pretty easily. I think he beat him 5.5, 1.5. And my best coaching job was with Gata was by myself. I would take the subway to his house in Brooklyn, and we studied. And that was his match with Kramnik. That was at the Trump Tower, and I was the only one helping him there. And he beat Kramnik 4.5, 1.5. That's impressive. To think about Kramnik beating him 4.5, 1.5. That's really something. I was really proud of him for that one. I mean, that one was really unbelievable. And then the Karpov match, I was with him in the Kalmykian Republic, Lista, the capital of the Kalmykian Republic, for his match with Karpov, and that was just a weird setup there. Dan, I mean, I think that he was just that match against Karpov was almost in Montreal. I think if Gata played Karpov in Montreal, he would have had a really good chance to win. And I think having it in this kind of a boring place and sort of like giving Karpov home court advantage really made it hard on Gata there. And he lost that match pretty badly. That was in 1996. And so I went to a few matches with Gata, and we I liked it. It's like Gingy said to me once, this is chess on a, we're working on chess at its highest level. And that's, even though we weren't playing, it was very interesting to work on the opponents and try to figure out what was going on. And, just being a real coach.
So what were your specific duties as a second?
Oh, we just did openings. We just studied all their games, trying to figure out what was going on, what the best things to play were. And then when we were done with our opponents' games, then we started looking who is helping the opponent. Maybe, in the Short match, Short's coach was Robert Hubner. So then we started studying Hubner's games in case, Nigel borrowed some of Robert's openings. So just a lot of playing over games and as back then that's computers were starting, but I was always big on notebooks. I was always writing stuff in notebooks, and we worked very hard on the players and worked very hard on the openers. I think that's what it comes to when these guys playing these matches. Like if you're playing Magnus Carlsen, especially with black, you got to make sure you stay in one piece. And in the last World Championship match, Ian did not stay in one piece long enough in the openings, and that's why he got, he lost pretty badly. I think he lost by 4 points and didn't win a game. But I don't know if it had something to do with nerves, but Gata had very good nerves to play in any kind of these matches. And I had a lot of fun. Some people thought I was crazy, Dan, but I had a lot of fun with them, and I thought it was a real adventure.
Did you get along with the dad as well?
Yeah, I got along with Rustam okay. Yeah, I don't know, Rustam. I mean, he yelled at me sometimes, and I just asked him, "Well, calm down. Why are you yelling at me?" But he was a little bit intense, but it's just the way it was, and I remember one time Alexander Ivanov worked for them, and I think he had a miserable time, and he asked me, he says to me, "John, you liked working with the Kanskys?" I said, "Yeah, I kind of liked it." And he just shook his head at me and said, "You're crazy," and walked away. And I said, "Yeah, well, but it was an adventure, and they always paid me pretty well. I couldn't complain about that, Do
you still have all these notebooks from your career?
No, unfortunately not. I don't know. It's possible that some of them are still at my sister's house in Florida, somewhere. My mother kept nice scrapbooks of me, as I was winning these tournaments, Chess Life, and I used to sent her pictures of me in a newspaper. Like one time when I won the Vikings A B section, I sent her kind of an amusing picture. Like I made the front page of this newspaper in Amsterdam because I was sitting on the floor reading their newspaper, and they took a picture of me reading their newspaper. And I had, well, Dan, I had 6 beers near me, but they were really small beers. My mother goes, "What do you got, 6 beers or something?" I said, "You counted them?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, but they were like this big." I said, "If you put them together, they came to one normal sized beer." So, and I said, and the place was, and there were usually huge lines, so it saved time just to get more than one beer there. But that was like that was one of my better results too. That was the a tournament. The 3 pole guards were in the tournament, and when I won the tournament, it's my favorite trophy. It's in my drawer over here. It's my favorite trophy. It's like a silver pin of a queen, and of course I had to hassle the organizer. I said, "Hey, isn't the trophy usually like a king?" And then he just smiled at me and said, "Well, John, you know why." I said, "Yeah, you thought one of the pole guards was going to win the tournament, and I crashed the party, I guess." And that was a tour. I like playing in Holland. Was one of my favorite places to play. I played there a lot.
And about your notebooks being with your sister, so you continue to work in New York City, but you let your notebooks retire to Florida.
Yeah, they're just they're just hanging out there. I mean, next time I go see my sister, I'll ask her about it. And and it was always fun to look at the scrapbooks that my mother made from my cutting out articles where I won tournaments like Glenn Peterson, Atlantic Chess News and stuff like that. Whenever I did well in a tournament in New Jersey, Glenn wrote about it, and then my mother would cut out some important articles and paste them into a book, and that was a very nice to her to do. And there's some of those scrapbooks are somewhere, but you know how it is, Dan. They get buried in the back of the closet somewhere, and you only see them if you move.
So it sounds like you had a proud mom, but what about when you started out and you first said, "Look, I'm going to become a professional chess player"? Was your family supportive?
Well, my mother was very cool. She would ask me stuff like when I was growing up. She'd ask me she'd go "So how do you feel about things?" And I go, "Well," I remember saying to her once, I hope to get a girlfriend at some point, maybe get a nice apartment, and I hope to drink a beer one of these days. I still, I guess I achieved that goal. Okay. And she was a great mom. And, and then when I started to play chess, she's like, are you going to do this? And I said, well, I'm going to, I said, I could do it for a while. And if not, then there'll be plenty of time to, to go to something else. If it didn't turn out well, I figure I would do it till maybe I was 22 or something like that and see how it went. And then it would have been time to go to school. I mean, all my friends went to Rutgers. I almost went to Rutgers. I almost joined the Marines, Dan. I almost joined the Marines in August of 1978. And Jim Tarjan talked me out of it. And said maybe that was a little bit of a too hasty decision, and and told me to relax and think about it. And then of course I just kept getting better at chess, so I kept sticking with it, and it's been a great life. I had a lot of fun. I wish I won one U.S. championship, Dan. That's maybe the only thing that bothers me a little bit, but that's okay.
What was your best result in the U.S. championship?
I came in second a number of times. I didn't really. I think I played 21 U.S. championship. I might have came in second, second a few times, third maybe, a few times. I always had pretty good. I always had pretty good results. The U.S. championship was always a nice tournament to play in back then because you get to hang around with your friends, and it was weird. It was a different world back then because it seemed like the tournaments were longer and we didn't mind it. Now everything seems to be speeded up.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like we could go to a U.S. championship now. Like in Berkeley in 1984, 18 players with days off. We were in Berkeley for about 25 days for that U.S. championship. and it just doesn't seem like we would do that nowadays. And I was like, it was always, it was the premier event every year for us, and so it was just nice to play in. And then, and then when it came to be, look, back then my rent, let's pick a year, 1988, my rent was like $300 a month, so if I won one tournament, that would keep me in pretty good shape for a long time.
We already talked about, how proud you are of being in the Hall of Fame. What are some of your proudest chess moments?
I liked getting the GM title in Dubai along with my friends Joel Benjamin and Max Delugi. That was November of 1986, and that was kind of an important thing to get the Grandmaster title there because back then norms expired, and some of my norms were going to expire. And then you'd have to start all over. So it just finished in time. And I remember that I knew something was up because Donaldson told me I had the day off, and I was wondering why we were drinking red wine for breakfast with Arnold Denker and Don Schultz. We had like a GM. Welcome to being a GM party in our on our floor. We were on a very nice floor in this hotel in Dubai, and Don and Arnold, were good guys and always a lot of fun, and they threw this party for me getting the GM title that day, and we had a good time on that Olympic team. We had a very good chance to win that Olympics, and in the end the USSR passed us by, and But yeah, that was a proud moment making the GM title there. And then anytime I played on a team was a lot of fun. I played on, a lot of teams. I was the men's team captain. I became the men's team captain in 1984 by accident. They sent me along as an analyst to help prepare and stuff. But Robert Byrne was the men's team captain, and the New York Times called him back, and he had to go back home, and they wouldn't let it. They said it was a conflict of interest. He was writing about. Do you remember the never-ending Karpov-Kasparov match was going on at that time?
Right.
And so they called Byrne back. That was around November, and it was and it wasn't a bad place to go. It was a nice it was a nice town, and President Ilyich Zhumanov always took good care of us when we went to his country.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was always proud of being on the team. And then, and just proud. I don't know. I was just happy to play. Lubomir Kavala told me once that as a chess player, you didn't have to take first in every tournament. Sometimes taking second or third was pretty good too. But Americans were always having. It's the way our sports are set up that if you come in second place, it's a bad thing.
First loser.
But that's just because of the way the way the baseball series is set up. A chess tournament's a different thing.
Right.
So I was just proud of those achievements of the and I was proud of making the IM title after playing chess for about 5 years.
Yeah. Again, I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it, but I accept it for what it is. I
just don't know, Dan, if I had a coach, if I could have gotten better. I don't know. I never really thought about it. It's not, I don't know. It's not worth it to think backwards too much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I suppose having a coach has to be a big help, but we just didn't, we were our own coaches back then. And then, then when we went to tournaments and we made friendships, our friends we were kind of each other, to have friends like Joel Benjamin and Larry Christians and Nick DeFermian or something like that, we didn't have coaches, but we helped each other, and that was always an important thing and very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've kind of already started your answer to what my final question for you, and that's what has chess meant to you in your life?
Well, I don't know. I the way the life turned out, and I think it's meant everything. I think I love chess, and I love playing it. I love studying it. I love teaching it. Do you remember the story where I tried to become a French chef, Dan?
No, I do not.
Yeah, I tried to become a French chef around 1996, and just to be able to do something else maybe. And I like cooking but I had trouble at the school. It was too high level for me, and my knife skills were not that good. And, and I just couldn't imagine myself like doing, making an ice. Can you see me making an ice sculpture, Dan? I mean, let's be serious, So, but I made some good soups and stuff like that, and I was cooking stuff okay, but it was a very intensive course, and so I was going to be a chef, but then it didn't work out, and then I was interviewed for New and Chess about that the great the great Dutch magazine New and Chess, and which I subscribe to, and I think I highly recommend it for people that love chess, and so. In the magazine, they asked me about this, and I said, well, I had to withdraw, and I walked home. It was snowing, and I was like in tears, and people were staring at me, because I failed. You don't want to fail anything, and I failed that. But so I said something like, well, I'm a chess player again, and that's not so bad, is it? And then the interviewer said, thank you, John. That was very poignant. I couldn't tell. He's got the way he said it. I think he was being sarcastic, but I wasn't sure, But the chess part of it has been great the entire time. And like I said, Dan, I really don't see why I should retire. I'm still playing pretty well. Last summer I played in the U.S. Open, the World Open, and the New Jersey Open. And then I play in Parsippany every year in the amateur team because some of my students like playing that, and it's always a lot of fun to see everybody. And Dan, it's weird; it's less pressure, so I'm still a pretty decent player. And I just, like I said a few times, I just don't see. I mean, I'm not a baseball player; my arm's not tired. I can play chess, no problem. No energy problem. I feel good, and I'm just going to keep playing and teaching and having a lot of fun with it.
Well, that's great. So thank you so much for joining us. That's a great statement to close on. Look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks in Columbus, and then we'll see.
Yeah. I'll see you next week, Dan. I'll probably see you next Thursday. In Ohio.
And then we'll also see each other at the Castle Chess Camp in Atlanta in June.
That's right. Yep. And then we'll see each other at the U.S. Open. And Dan, we ran into it. It's funny when you go to these kids' dorms, there's so many people, you don't run into people, but I ran into you 5 times last week.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, as you said, one of us is stalking the other person.
Remember that? I said, hey, Dan, I'm not following you,
Well, John, thank you for joining us on One Move at a Time.
Thank you, Dan. And to everybody, keep playing, keep working. Chess is a lot of fun, and you get what you want out of it. And I wish everybody the best. See you next week, Dan. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Dan.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of One Move at a Time, which always drops on the second Tuesday of each month. Our theme music was composed by National Master Alex King of Memphis, Tennessee. Our podcasts are produced and edited by Jason Andre at 7 Season Films, Photography, and Media. Please visit www.sevenseasonfilms.com to find out how to start your own podcast. Our sister podcasts at US Chess are Cover Stories with Chess Life on the first Tuesday of each month, Ladies Night, hosted by Women's Program Director Jennifer Shahadi on the third Tuesday of each month, and on the fourth Tuesday, Chess Underground, hosted by our Assistant National Events Director Pete Karayanis. I hope that you have learned something of value that you can now use to help build chess in your own community. We'll be back next month with another Chess World personality who is helping us advance our mission statement to empower people, enrich lives, and enhance communities through chess.